to build a stronger, more unified town, and they do this through public advocacy, sponsoring educational programs, helping other organizations and town departments address conflict through consultation, and reporting civil rights violations to appropriate government agencies. And the slide right after that is an example of a flow chart that they use for how they handle complaints. So they have an online form where people would submit a complaint, and then basically there's an investigation and an interview of all the different parties involved with that complaint. And they will it'll hopefully come to, there would be some sort of resolution, there would be a referral to another agency, or there would be a report and sort of it would be escalated to their select board, school committee, or commission against discrimination within the state. So that's just an example of what the flow process could look like. And what was interesting about Lexington on the next slide is that they also have this diversity task force. So this diversity task force is actually a subcommittee within this other committee that they have called 2020, and it's really the future of Lexington. They've got planning board, select board, schools, they have everybody on this particular committee, and this diversity task force is one subcommittee of that. And so this group is really looking to be the experts of diversity and inclusion. They have a plan, like a 1 to 3 year plan, where they're going to create a plan for increasing town leaders' expertise in and commitment to these issues. They are also going to recommend a 3-year plan for their town and school programs that will foster diversity and inclusion in the community. So this is really the community side of, I feel like, the diversity discussion. They're really focused on civic engagement and education, promoting the culture within the town itself. So the slide after that is on the North Andover Commission for Inclusion, Equity and Diversity. And so this is really an advisory commission. They recommend areas for the town in terms of investment in order to use financial tools to address root causes of inequities. They foster or facilitate building relationships with underserved and underrepresented communities. They examine the community and provide feedback to the town that would assist in fostering mutual understanding. And they do a lot of that through education and outreach. They sponsor a conversation series, which is a listening and education tool for the community and the town leaders. So it is a permanent committee here. And then finally, the last example is from Fitchburg. And I know the makeup of Fitchburg is pretty different from what we have, but it was an interesting commission because it's very focused. It's an extension really of the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. So they're following the MGL chapters. They're really investigating the complaints about denial of equal access to benefits, public services, investigating discrimination, looking at prejudice, intolerances, bigotry, and they do a lot of mediation. So obviously that was a really quick overview of those examples, but in the end, I think we're looking at we have a couple of slides here of key questions. So kind of, I don't know if everyone has had a chance to take a look at these different examples, but just really at the high level review that we just did, I just went over for just a few minutes, but really what is the mission of our group in Westford? Are we going to be looking at discrimination complaints? Is it around education, policy recommendations, accountability? Is the scope town specific? Does it include the school as well? And related directly to that is, what is their charge going to be? And these are just some example questions. It could be, we could obviously end up somewhere that is not on this list. But once we decide on what the mission and the charge is, I think it will influence the questions on the next slide, the composition of this working group. If it should be largely within the community, should it include town staff, board members, and then also what the timeline of their charge is going to be, if it's going to be a permanent committee or if it's going to be time specific. So I don't know, Tom, if you have anything to add. I just kind of rambled through that kind of quickly.
I think that's a great overview, and I think a great conversation for us to have is to see how this board feels about creating such a body and what sort of, at least at the outset, what the key responsibilities we'd like that group to have would be.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Tom and Anita, for putting this together and for doing some research and gathering information. It's helpful to have a starting point, so thank you very much. Mark.
I think we can't hear you, Mark.
We can't hear you, Mark.
Just the way everybody likes it.
Oh, there we go.
So So thank you for starting to pull this together. As I was reading through it, there was one thing that struck me on all of them, which I don't know if you have the answer or not. I hope you do, and if not, I think we need to go get it. A lot of, like, when we start talking about investigations and analyses of an incident, you're talking about people who should be professionals in doing this kind of thing, whether they be human resource professionals, whether they be investigative professionals. So I'm curious as to whether, you can't just have a bunch of, people from the community who have no experience doing this and recommend that they start an investigative process on an incident that somebody happens to report on. I mean, that is not going to work at all. So I'm curious as to how these communities do it.
That's a good question that we can definitely do more follow-up on. My impression from reviewing the Lexington was that it was primarily a place to sort of an alternative additional path to receive a concern or complaint, but that largely the follow-up would be done, in the individual, area affected. So for example, if a concern came in with the schools, it wouldn't be like an inspector general outfit from the outside coming to the schools, was my impression. It was that we've had this report, we'd like to use.
You're stuck, Tom.
Tom, you're stuck. You're frozen.
And it's not a good look. I just want you to know.
Well, I know where Tom's going to go with it, but basically it's going to go, like, for example, like a human service agency or the school committee, if that's where the topic area is, but they are going to be part of that conversation, kind of helping to facilitate that discussion and doing some of that initial investigation. So sometimes having that, but I understand what you're saying, Mark. Yeah, that you can't have just any regular person come in. Mm-hmm.
Well, and so I kind of go back to some of the issues we heard on that night. You've got the people that maybe someone files a complaint about, report to somebody. If it's a town employee or a school employee, they report to somebody who is tasked with doing the investigation. And we already heard from many people that they don't trust that process to begin with, which is why some of these complaints don't come forward at the start. So, I think first of all, I think we have to be really careful about policing in a different way, if you will. I hate to use that term, but whoever it is, they should be professionals. And I continue to support the need that, corporations with human resource professionals who do this, that are independent from, again, if it's a school or town employee, from department heads who would be asked to do the investigation. If it has nothing to do with employees of the town and the school, then who's doing that? What qualifications do they have to do that? So I just think there's a lot, like I have a lot of questions. I don't know if we have the answers to it, but I'd certainly like to know more about how these communities are doing it if they're not doing it with skilled people.
So I don't know if you guys can hear me. Am I back?
We can hear you now, Tom. You're unfrozen.
So we can take that on, Mark. It's a good idea. We could speak with the people in Lexington and go through in more detail, sort of specifically, once a concern comes in, how does it get logged? Who's doing the initial inquiry? When does it get passed over? What's the accountability back to that body afterwards? And at least document how they're doing it. So we'll have that as an input.
Okay, thank you.
Scott?
So at first blush, my instinct is that the right approach comes from Lexington, where you've got two bodies, and one has the mission, which you've kind of discussed in the past, about awareness, education, community. And a second group, which is the Human Rights Commission, which is really tasked more with, I guess, accountability and resolution. So to Mark's point, you might want professionals somehow involved in the second, but the first one, you would have a largely community commission, whatever it is we call it. So I think the idea of having two, while it sounds like more overhead, may be the right way to do this, because those are two separate paths or two separate issues. If you've got issues of a complaint that is different than I want to increase awareness of certain cultural activities or practices. But I do think we also want to have a discussion with the school committee. Do they want to have their own commission? I don't know what their thoughts would be, whether they want to combine with us on a common one. That seems a critical question up front. That determines composition and determines mission as well.
Yep, I think in terms of question of scope, Scott, you're exactly right. Do we team up with the schools so that we're sharing this set of resources across the whole town? Or, is there some reason that there's some separate effort that they have? And if this group is willing to advance that question to them, we could certainly engage with them and say, look, we're working this through and trying to figure out, would it be town and schools in the same scope or not?
And it may be that we've got one common commission on both school and town side for awareness education, and two separate ones, because the complaints would be, I think, very different from schools, which might involve students, and town, which would not. So I think you may find that that's the right way to go, but I don't want to speak for schools.
Yeah. Eric, can you scroll back to Lexington and put that up on the screen? Thank you. So it looks like, I think, I think I would like to talk to the schools as well, and I would like to involve them in this process, because I think that this is a community-wide, town-wide matter, and not something that really should, split in half, or with different committees and different commissions. I'd like to see that we're all on the same page. We're all working together on this, and we're all moving forward together. So I think that this is an area where we should be collaborating and coordinating and working with the schools, and having them involved, so that it is one, at least the overall committee is, or commission is, one committee, commission, whatever we end up calling it, for the town. I think, for me, I think that's really important, and that sends a message that, we as a town are looking at this issue, and as a whole town, we're looking at this issue. So I do think that that's important to do. So I think that we do need to reach out and bring the schools into this, into our discussion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Andrea. I really feel like we need to be united in this, and as many town leadership folks who we can bring together. I totally agree that that's the best way to go too. I really do like your idea, Scott, about thinking like once it comes to like kind of breaking things out, if we have a town side versus school side, but it's sort of the bigger umbrella that we're in this together. I really think we should do that too.
Tom? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Scott. I was going to react to something you said, so why don't you go first?
I was going to react to what Wade said. I just think that, if you think about the current examples we've had happen, if a student calls another student the N-word on a bus, that I think belongs as a school disciplinary action. If a poll worker treats a voter inappropriately, that's a town side disciplinary action. So I think that's why I was doing two separate committees for actual complaints, but that broad overarching school and town combined on the diversity task force. So I thought that's the best of both worlds, which I think is what Anita was saying.
Tom?
Okay, well, well, I was going to say, if this board directs it, what we can do between now and next time is follow Mark's suggestion and sort of detail out a little bit more about how this complaint concern process works, sort of who gets referred to when and what kinds of skill sets do they have doing that kind of work, and sort of try to get a little bit closer to what a charter for that might look like. We could talk to the schools and invite them to come to the next meeting for this part of the discussion. And then we could look at sort of advancing this other arm, which Scott was referring to, which is here called the Diversity Task Force, but that has more of a listening, engagement, education function and less of a sort of handling a complaint or concern sort of mission. So we'd come back with a little bit more developed ideas for those two things, and also make sure we're inviting the schools to the next discussion. If that sounds like a direction we'd want to go.
Anita?
Yeah, I just wanted to add kind of one more thing to that. So I know that if we might be moving forward with a couple of different work groups or committees or whatever it is, but I would really encourage people within the community to have conversations with wherever you are. The networks, the organizations that you belong to, these conversations should be happening everywhere and can be happening organically. You don't need to be waiting on us to be having these conversations. And I think that the more that this can be happening throughout the town, the better it is. And you could just advertise it, and as many people who can come and listen, the better. But I just want to make sure that it's not focused solely on these two committees. We really should be having this across the town.
Andrew, you probably see the questions. There's one from Jenny Kravitz and one really a public service announcement from Gloria Miller.
I do. We do have a question. Would the town consider creating a hired position for overseeing this process, a person with appropriate credentials and experience? I don't know that we can answer that right now. It's certainly something to be considered as we move forward and we develop these different groups and these different committees and commissions. But I do think, and this goes back to what Mark said, and I think what we've been talking about is if we are going to have a group that that does investigations, that it does have to be comprised of qualified people and led by a person who is qualified and who has the appropriate credentials and experience. So I think that certainly needs to be considered as we move forward. So there, I guess, let me do announce, and this is from the school committee, that the school committee, the Westford School Committee, is holding a virtual event, a sharing session, in order to give students and young alumni of Westford Public Schools an opportunity to share how race and racism has impacted their education in the district. The goal of the event is to hear voices of BIPOC members of the Westford Public School community, and is to amplify the authentic narratives that they bring. If you would like to attend the event, you can register at bit.ly/WPS sharing registration. I'm going to assume that site and that registration site is on the school committee webpage for you to look at. And the one thing is that what is not in it, but what I do believe is that it is being held tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I believe. If the time isn't right, somebody correct me, but I believe it's 7 p.m. tomorrow night. That's the part that you forgot, Gloria. But that's okay. So for anybody, folks, I certainly encourage folks to tune into that. Not only if you're a Westford Public School student or young alumni who has a story to share, but also for folks and residents to register, to listen and to hear some of the experiences of our students here at Westford. Let's see. Okay, it's tomorrow at 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And I'm also told that there is also another forum tomorrow night with BIPOC professionals who are here in town discussing anti-racism. I know that that's being held at the same time. And I don't have right now the information as to where you can sign up for that. So if somebody has that and wants to send it to us, I will certainly announce that one as well. But I do know it's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. as well. And whoops, hang on. They're getting the link. Okay. The link is www.facebook.com/events/279-487-5547-497973. And perhaps, oops, wait a minute, I keep going. Up, we've also got a, hang on a minute, let me read all these before I do this, okay. All right, so you can find out more, and this is perhaps an easier link, at www.copper-cobalt, copper, C-O-P-P-E-R, cobalt, C-O-B-A-L-T, one word, .org/new-events. And you can register for that, for this forum at bit.ly/30. Oh gosh, I really need new glasses.
Hey, Andrea, I did cut and paste these into the chat section. So anyone who can view the chat section can see these.
Great, because I can't read, I think it's BZB, capital I, capital V, but I may be wrong because I really can't.
I feel like I'm at my eye doctor's appointment right now.
Yeah, really.
Andrea, could I suggest that if people would like these events and links on the action taken, that they email them to me by tomorrow morning, because I want to be sure I get these links correct. So if they could email them, that would be wonderful.
I think that makes perfect sense, Jody. So, so for both of these events, please, we'll put them up on the action taken, which gets distributed tomorrow, usually around 11 a.m. or noontime. And we'll get the links up in the action taken, and we'll circulate it out to folks, and they can find it there. And Tom, there's one other question. Can you send the WPS forum info into the chat as well?
I would be happy to. I think that's what the Facebook section is, and Jenny Kravitz would be the one to answer that, I think, because she's the one who put the link in there. So Jenny, can you confirm that the Facebook link is the school's discussion tomorrow, and that the Copper Cobalt link is the people of color in town? Okay, Jenny says in the chat that Gloria will send me the link. Gloria, I hope you can get that link to me. As soon as I get it, I'll go ahead and post it here in the chat. We can also ask the folks who are maintaining westforjustice.org to make sure these links are up and available too.
Okay. Great. That's terrific, and we will do our best to get these links up and advertised to as many people as possible for tomorrow night's events. I think, oops, wait a minute. We do have a comment that says, I have a concern that we are looking for an elite task force and not a representative one. In my mind, that is a slippery slope. Well, Mark?
Yeah, just a response to that. And I don't know if that's related to what I was talking about. There's certainly no, at least from my perspective, I don't know how the rest of you feel. This has nothing to do about an elite task force. It just has to do with making sure that there's representation on these, whatever these become, for people who, at least some, who have experience in dealing with the tasks that we're asking them to do. So when we're looking at Lexington and North Andover and some of these other ones where they, they have this nice flow chart and an incident comes in and it begins an investigation. Well, who's investigating? What skills do they have to do that? I don't consider, if that's what is being referred to, that to me is not elite. That is just somebody who happens to have skill set in a task so that we are fair about what is being asked of this group and not creating problems on top of other problems. So I don't know if that's where the person was coming from, but there's certainly no elitism that I'm asking for in this. I'm just some experience and relevancy.
Yeah, no, I think it is, it's very important if these groups, if these committees, commissions are going to, have a meaningful impact and play a meaningful role in our town, that they do have to be representative of our town and its residents. At the same time, if there are specific tasks, such as investigation or something that needs that they're going to be charged with, they also, I think, need to have the necessary experience. We have a lot of talented people here in town. I think we have a lot of people here in town who have talents and experience that we don't even know about from all aspects of our community, including the BIPOC community. So I would hope that whatever we end up doing and whatever groups we end up doing will be representative of the town. Scott, I know you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, that's why I sort of mentioned potentially two different groups. One, that overarching diversity task force would be, citizens who have interest and not necessarily any degree of specialization, whereas perhaps the other, which was more focused on complaints, might be the one that has the requirement of some background in investigation or reconciliation or whatever it is that we're looking for there. So I think there's room for both, and welcome arms for anybody who wants to do this stuff.
And then we have another question. Are students, young alum, allowed to join these committees, especially in whatever committee works towards education? Personally, my answer is yes. They are part of this community. And if they have an interest, they're certainly welcome to apply and submit a citizen's application form when we start to put these committees together. All right.
In fact, we actually were asked that question as part of the Town and Safety Task Force, and Jody took a look at that. The answer is, to agree with me, Andrew, the answer was yes from Town Council. Students can be 16, don't be 18, they can still be on a committee. So yes, we welcome that. Some of our best thoughts on pedestrian safety have come from academy students.
Are they voting members though? Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Are they voting members though? If they're students, do you have to create a voting member seat, student seat?
Yes, they can be voting members.
Okay.
So just for the general public who isn't following this, we'll continue the discussion. I think we've agreed to further develop these two different ideas. Then we would create the committees with charters, and then we would create the seats and the composition structure, and then people would fill out citizen application forms. So that there's a very public and transparent series of steps that will happen between here and whatever these become.
Okay. So to be continued, we'll put it as we are doing. We'll continue this discussion at our next meeting in August. Okay. So we are now at our 7:55. I don't see any more questions. Okay, so we are at our 7:55 p.m. item, Westford Cat financial update and a request for an extension to provide the select board with their 2019 financial audit at a later date. And I don't know if it's Christy or Sarah or Jack who is presenting, but if one of you would like to let us know where things are and give us an update on Westford Cat financial update, that would be terrific.
Hi, Andrea. This is Christy. It's going to be Christy, Sarah, and Jack are going to be giving the presentation.
Okay.
And I wonder if Eric could put up the slide packet. And I'm having problems. Can anyone see me? This is Christy.
No, we can see. I
You can see
can't.
Jack and Sarah, but you can't. I just got an error message that I cannot share my webcam.
Well, we
No,
can hear, Christy, we can hear you.
Hear me, so I apologize for that. I don't know what's happening, but as long as you can hear me, we've got the slides up. So thank you very much for having us tonight. I'm Christy Bates. I'm the board president, and I'm here with Jack Wang, the board treasurer, and Sarah Fletcher, who is the acting executive director. The last time we were here at a select board meeting was April 28th. And it was at that meeting that the select board voted to continue the memorandum of understanding with the Westford Cat, which we were pleased about. Also at that time, you asked us to come back and provide you with a progress report in 3 months. So here we are, 3 months to the date, coincidentally. So Eric, if you can move up the next slide to the agenda. This is what we're going to be discussing tonight. And I'm going to speak to the first 3 items on the agenda, and then Jack will go through the financial summary, followed by Sarah, who will be going over operations and fundraising. And unless you prefer a different format, I was going to suggest that we pause after each speaker for you to ask questions.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So Eric, if you can move forward to the next slide. And this lists the newly elected board members. And I'd just like to say, first of all, that I am humbled and excited to be working with this group of smart, creative, and caring people. These are the 6 new board members that were elected at the annual meeting in April. It's myself, Susan Spuler, Jack Wang, Diane Wood, Bob Jeffries, and Marilyn Cattler. We also have Tom Clay and Sean Kelly as the liaisons from the select board and the school committee. And we're working with Neshoba Tech to get an additional, a new liaison from them. Not listed here are 2 of the former board members who we're very lucky to have, Tracy Tebro and Nancy Burns, and they have stayed on as board observers. So they're attending our board meetings and providing us with input. We're very happy to have them. And if you can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So we have a dedicated and experienced staff at Westford Cat. Sarah Fletcher was appointed as the acting executive director by the board, and Joyce Crane's position, we're happy to say, as the multimedia news director has been reinstated. Steve Edwards, Patty Stocker, and Nick Woodbury continue to do the excellent work that they do. And this summer, we added Andrea Bow. She's a high school student in Westford, and she started as a part-time office assistant. Also, we have Carolyn Crimmins. She's going to be working with Joyce as a news intern for 6 weeks this summer. And as stated in the first bullet here, the executive director search has been temporarily postponed, and that's just kind of until we get a handle on finances and the needs of the station and kind of get through this pandemic, hopefully soon. Speaking of the pandemic, one thing I want to point out is the board has not met in person yet. We're very used to these remote meetings, but it would be nice to meet in person. So I look forward to that. All right, and Eric, if you could go to the next slide, please. So here's a list of the new committees that we've established, and these were established after the annual meeting. And I'll just quickly go through them. The Finance Committee is chaired by Jack Wang. Members on that committee are Alden Wood, Pam Florek, Sarah Fletcher, and Christy Bates. the fundraising task force that was initiated prior to the annual meeting. And Kathy Ricketson is chairing that committee. Members are Ray Mascola, Cheryl Major, Sarah Fletcher, Steve Edwards, Susan Spuler, Diane Wood, and Christy Bates. Next is the transition team, and that, along with the executive director search, is on hold. Hopefully that should be starting in the near future. Right now we have Susan Spuler, Tracy Tebro, and Nancy Burns on that committee. The legislative committee includes Diane Wood, Marilyn Catler, and Bob Jeffries. And that committee will be reviewing state and federal legislation that impacts PEG stations, and they're working to educate the board, members, and the community about the legislative status. Next is the Bylaws and Policy Committee. That's chaired by Sean Kelly, and members are Marilyn Catler, Paul Fassbender, and Christy Bates. They'll be reviewing the current bylaws and making recommendations for changes to the board. And lastly, we have listed the Infrastructure Committee, and it includes Bob Jeffries and Tom Clay, and they'll be reviewing ground leases, rights of way, and as possible revenue opportunities, as well as other possible revenue opportunities. So that's the list of committees, and most of these committees have met at least once, and they're meeting on a regular basis. And I just want to say, if anyone watching is interested in participating on one of those committees, we would love to talk to you. Feel free to reach out to myself or to Sarah Fletcher to look for additional information. And that's it for my section, and I will ask for questions at this time.
Does anybody from the board have any questions?
Okay.
Yes,
wait,
Tom,
Tom?
Tom does.
Sorry, Andrew.
Tom?
Not really a question, but just this group has a lot of energy. They're putting a lot of time into it. They're professionalizing a lot of the work. So just great group of people with a ton of energy coming in and really pitching in to help make Westford Cat the best it can be. So a very, very solid group.
Great.
Thank you. And
And
now,
I don't see any other questions from the audience, so I guess, Christy, if you want to turn it over to Jack.
thank you. Jack Wang is the treasurer, and he'll go over the financial summary with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everyone, for having us. And again, it's a great honor to be working with Christy, Sarah, and Tom, as well as the other board members. My name is Jack Wang. I am the treasurer of Westford Cat. And so I just want to say that from earlier this year till now, reports of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. So it is not without challenges, but we are cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic. So we have been doing a lot on the finances, getting a budget in place, getting a handle on the finances, trying to be more efficient with our money, which I'll cover in just a moment. You can see some of the figures there. Year over year revenue, actually the decrease in revenue isn't quite as great as what you see there, because part of what's on our revenue numbers are unrealized gains and losses from investments. So if you back that out, the gap is a little bit closer. We are budgeting a small operating loss for the year, just given, my saying is that we're basically trying to build the airplane while we're trying to fly it, trying to handle the transition from the last board, get a handle of what's going on, while at the same time trying to maintain operations. But really, the last 3 bullet points on this particular slide, I will just call your attention to. We're a nonprofit, right? And so obviously we don't want to lose money, but really that's not the key metric here. Our net operating cash flow is positive. So we're a little bit down from last year, but it's still nonetheless positive, which is really the key indicator that I look at for ongoing operational efficiencies and sustainability. So at the end of June, between cash and investment equivalents, we have over $500,000, which is actually up from December. So while challenges certainly remain ahead, we are cautiously optimistic. And as the finance committee on Westford Cat, we have been meeting to address a number of these areas and really better understand a number of these areas so that we may be even more effective. Eric, if you could please go to the next slide, and then I will, of course, pause for questions. So a couple of things that we've undertaken. So with Sarah being stepping into the role of acting executive director, we want to really take care of the great staff at Westford Cat and really recognize them for their work through the difficult transition of the board, but also during the pandemic. And so what we did was we closed the gap with the increased responsibilities on Sarah. We closed the gap between what her salary was for versus what the old executive director was paid. So we cover that by roughly half. Also, the staff at the CAT have been going without raises or anything, and just were under tremendous pressure. And quite frankly, it was a lot to, it was kind of unfair to ask of them, just given the turmoil that had taken place. So we did pay out just a one-time staff bonus, small staff bonus, just to, again, show our appreciation for them. And those, of course, those numbers, those increased expenses are in our budgeted numbers. Also, we will meet our, in parentheses, current targets for Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiveness. We're really excited about this. Part of why we did the one-time bonus and the executive director stipend is because we were trying to make sure we met the threshold for forgiveness under the old guidelines, which was 80% over an 8-week period. Or 80% of the money had to be spent on payroll and sort of operational expenses such as rent. The new threshold of 60% over 24 weeks, we are going to sail well over that hurdle easily. But we still felt that taking care of our staff was really important. So we are on track for forgiveness. I actually just saw today the email that working with our primary bank, Lowell 5, the process for that will start, I believe, the second week of August, in which case, of course, we will be applying for loan forgiveness. At the same time, we're taking a top to bottom review of all of our banking investment policies. So at any given time, we have a decent chunk of cash sitting around. So with the finance committee, I've undertaken to look at how do we squeeze more yield out of our cash holdings without increase in risk or going out on the maturity curve or taking greater credit risk. So that is in process right now. So again, this is part of trying to be as efficient as possible with the money that we do have. Our major expense really is payroll, but in all the other areas, the major significant areas such as benefits costs and some others, we'll be looking at areas potentially where we can save some money, but importantly is to not necessarily give up or cut any of the services or benefits that we offer today. So we're going to be looking at those areas to see what opportunities there are to cut. If it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, we're not going to do it. I'm not here to make change just for change's sake. But also with all this work and working closely with the fundraising task force, we are working closely to align our budgetary along with fundraising goals so that now that we have a budget that we're working with and we can identify that gap before any loan forgiveness, we've communicated that with the fundraising task force so they have a better direction in terms of our ask of them to help us close the gap. Additionally, we'll be looking at things like some of our policies regarding our investment funds, at what percentage can we withdraw so that we could, if needed, can use to help cover operations while still maintaining investment fund sustainability. So that is a very high level. I just want to reiterate that we will be back later this year to give a more detailed presentation of results. The figures you saw previously are unaudited. To that end, we do have a request. Normally, under the MOU, we would have to provide audited financials and our annual report by the end of the month, I believe. Due to reasons that are just completely beyond me, the CPA firm was late. We were late in engaging the CPA firm. The CPA firm was late in getting the audit started. So we have filed for an extension of filing our income tax returns with the IRS. And we are waiting to hear back when our CPA firm may be done with the audit so we can review the final numbers with you. So to that end, I am asking that the select board approve a delay in Westford Cat presenting final audited numbers till, I think, Chrissy, you have to help me out here. I think it's till like November 30th to give our auditors enough time to make sure that they go through everything.
Well, it's November 30th is the extension date, but they're probably going to be done within a month.
Okay.
But she had said by the end of August, by the time we get everything reviewed and ready to go, that we should be done with that. So it won't go as late as November.
Yeah, but that would be very, yeah, I would say then that with the extension of the date, I don't necessarily know how you want to word this, but like no later than whatever date, with the expectation be a lot earlier than November 30th, however you would normally word that. But questions, if anyone has some for the financial side.
Mark, I kind of figured you had to have a question.
So first of all, it's really not a question, it's just a series of comments. I want to applaud you all for this. This was, one of the areas that I think was a bit of contention while all this was going on, that, we had to make these cuts in order to, survive. And when I think all of us looked at the cash position, it seemed like there was an awful lot of runway. So not only have you proven that, but you've taken actions to, continue to build a strong organization. I know you still have a lot of work to do, but I applaud you all for doing it. And I certainly feel even better than I did before about the decision that we made.
Yeah, I just want to echo Mark's comments. I remember, back in April and the doom and gloom that was being presented and the cuts that needed to be made, and we wouldn't survive in any other way. And so, clearly, you folks in the 3 months that you've all been on board have done a tremendous amount of work to really get, Westford Cat back on track. And to help us understand that, are you out of the woods yet? No, but certainly, things seem to be on such a, good, stable, moving forward program where you're all coordinating with one another, where the budget is coordinating with fundraising, and you have a plan going forward and a goal to meet. And so, as Mark said, kudos to all of you and for all of the obviously very hard work and long hours you've put in the last 3 months.
Thank you.
Scott?
So, I mean, independent of finances, I just want to say I appreciate the fact of how flexible and professional WCAT has been. I mean, we've gone through how many meetings remotely as opposed to cameras that you all managed to pull together. Outdoor town meeting, you managed to pull together. So, the technology and the cooperation that we've seen evidence has been really, really appreciated to keep our town voters informed, transparent in a rather difficult time to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And that's a great segue, unless anyone has any financial questions, into Sarah's overview of operations.
Right. All right. So, good evening. My name is Sarah Fletcher, and I'm the acting executive director at Westford Cat. And to begin, I just want to express my gratitude for all the people that stood up on our behalf and took considerable action and created a lot of positive change and forward momentum. So many of these folks are now serving on the board and our newly formed committees, and we're working collaboratively towards a sustainable future for Westford Cat, and it feels really good. So thank you all who have stepped up. And the staff, I mean, like you say, Scott, the staff has been, Joyce, Nick, Patty, and Steve, they've continued to work through the organizational turmoil earlier in the year, right into the pandemic. And we're producing and supporting the community in so many ways, showing an amazing amount of resiliency, flexibility, dedication. They're truly an award-winning staff, and I'm really proud to be working with them through these times. It has been a challenge. Ray Mascola was one of the folks that spearheaded the studio's lease renewal, which was due to expire at the end of the year. So we're all set for the next 5 years as far as that is concerned. The station televised live from Alumni Field, the annual town meeting. It showcased on our channels, on our website, on YouTube, all simultaneously. So that was really a great event. I was very proud of them. Nick was on the switcher for that event. Andrea Bao and Wayne Wagner were the camera operators. Steve helped get it all set up and break it all down. And we're looking forward to doing it again for graduation on Friday, August 7th at 10 a.m. So don't miss that. That'll be quite an event. When we did televise live from the field, it just opened up the door for so many more possibilities. We could cover future games and events from the field, and we're hoping that some WA students interested in multimedia will consider volunteering and being crew for home games when they happen again, and hopefully that won't be too far away. But so we can start telecasting live right from the field, and that'd be a lot of fun. We are covering a significant amount of COVID-19 informational interviews, recordings, videos, news articles. We're trying to keep the community as well informed as we can in this changing environment where the staff is working remotely and they're able to access all the station's files and equipment, allowing us to support all the virtual government meetings, which are all televised live. And since January, we've been televising everything or streaming everything through to our YouTube channel, which makes the review immediately available. So when people want to go back and look at the meeting, it's immediately available on YouTube, rather than having to wait for the staff to come in the next day and upload it and get it on our channels. So that's kind of a nice improvement right away that's on the YouTube. So on the next slide, we've had a surge in membership. So we've had a lot of new interest in the members being a member of Westford Cat. We had 56 members join so far this year. We've created an income of $2,775 with the membership. We're partnering with as many community organizations as possible to help people stay connected through our programming. And this has included like public service announcements for special programs that are going on right now. We are, let's see, we have Cameron Senior Center doing exercise programs. We've done election coverage. And recently we've been talking with the Parish Center for the Arts to get their gallery artists interviewed and all handled virtually. So there've been a few on-site events that we have covered, such as the Black Lives Matter rallies on the town common and the election coverage. But most everything else has been handled virtually. One of my responsibilities at Westford Cat has always been to develop relationships in the community, to especially share the value of sponsoring the station. Last year, Westford Cat had over 18 sponsors, 2 underwriters, and we received a $5,000 programming grant. This year, we've received new funding from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. Thanks to Patty Mason for her encouragement to apply for that grant. The grant supported the purchase of sanitation supplies and personal protection equipment. So we continue to develop sponsor relationships and strive to increase our grant revenues. One of the directions of the task force committee will be to look at potentially monetizing some of our services as well. The studio is open to members now, and we do have a few that have started to come back and schedule studio time and to record and edit their programs. We have developed office protocols to keep the staff and community safe at the station. I noticed that Ed Cohen employed a push broom set between his chair and Gino's chair during the recording of his 101st show, taking all precautions with a little humor, which is his style. So I wanted to just congratulate Ed Cohen for his 101st show. Our newly generated revenues have come in exceeding $10,000 so far through this pandemic. They've included income from an online auction, dining for a cause events, donations, and grants. Our future plans include a holiday online auction, adding more dining for a cause events, some grant applications, as well as a membership sponsorship drive in the fall. And our primary goal is to engage the public and let them know how vital we are as a means of community connection, support, and news coverage. And again, I just want to thank everybody for all the support we've had and for the great energy and movement forward this year through all this crazy times.
Well, thank you, and thank you and everybody at CAT for all of your hard work and dedication during these crazy times. I think that Westford CAT has become one of the major sources for folks here in town to get their news, get their information, and learn about what's happening in the town too. So to all of you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? I don't see any, and I don't see, Anita?
Anita's got it.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to echo everyone else. I think this is an amazing presentation. I love how upbeat everyone is, which is very different from some of the conversations previously, or the tone. And obviously everyone has just worked so hard to put this together. And I just think it's so great. I do have one question, and I didn't know where best to ask this, but just about the legislative committee and the outlook of just how things are looking. I just wanted to see if there's an update on how that's going.
This is Christy. I'll try to answer that. So right now, both the legislation in the state and at the federal level are on hold because of COVID. So, but hopefully we will get more specific information out there to the community, because we do want to engage our members to reach out to their legislators to ask to support both the state and the federal measures.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark, are you raising your hand or
No,
just?
sorry,
Okay.
up in the air.
Okay. So we do have one ask and one request from Westford CAT, which is to delay their submission of their audited financials to us to a date no later than November 30th, 2020. So is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second. I'll second.
Okay. And Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So thank you all very much. If you get your audited before November 30th, please let Jody know, and we'll put you back
Don't be
on
shy.
yeah, right. And we'll put you back on our agenda before November 30th.
Christy, did you have a little bit more to wrap up on that last slide?
So I think we've probably used a lot of our time. I just want to encourage everybody to go to westfordcat.org. And if you're not familiar with Westford CAT, just take a look around and see what's out there. The shows that Sarah's mentioned, there are a lot more. And I highly recommend calling in to arrange for a tour, or maybe even looking into becoming a producer. And I thank everybody here for their time tonight. And we look forward to coming back before November 30th for another presentation.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. We're at our 8:10 p.m. item, which is a request from the Recycling Commission for support to apply for a technical assistance grant through the Mass DEP to assist the town with conducting further analysis into potentially implementing a pay-as-you-throw program in the future for trash and recycling. And I believe Corey Groves is out there and is going to be presenting this to us. So if you can unmute him, Eric. Corey, are you there?
Hi, good evening. It's Corey Groves. Can you hear me okay?
Now we can, yes. Hello, good evening.
Excellent. Thank you. So my name's Corey Groves. I'm a member of the Recycling Commission. And as you've seen in the prepared information, the Recycling Commission is seeking approval from the Select Board to submit a request to Mass DEP for a technical assistance grant. As I noted in the package, this grant will provide information analysis to give the town an updated picture of the current pay-as-you-throw landscape. And the town last reviewed this concept, I think, in 2013. So this technical assistance grant will allow the town to have a more recent set of data to support a decision framework. In my conversations with the Mass DEP on this potential project, they will use their database to give us information around a cost-benefit analysis, implementation options, and then also how to consider this project in conjunction with town recycling and trash contracts, and how those would interplay. And then lastly, they'll also offer us some anecdotal evidence on other towns where this has worked, where it hasn't worked, what are the successes and failure factors for those towns, which I think is an important piece of information for everybody to consider. So just generally, this is probably a several-month project that we're about to undertake if the board does approve it. But this is really the first step in that project plan, is to submit the application for assistance, and then really engage with Mass DEP on the components of the application and finalize the statement of work with them before they can begin their project. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have if you've had a chance to read the submission package or otherwise.
Thank you, Corey. Questions from the board? Scott?
Well, this is, I guess, I'm curious. So if we get the grant, does that cover all of our costs? Or are we looking at the town needing to add more money to the grant to get the study completed?
So there may be potential additional costs. I don't have insight into what those might be, but I think one of those potential items might be the cost of, let's say, one of the options or one of the findings is that we use a bag system or a particular size barrel system. There may be a cost to the town to implement, distribution of those barrels or initial set of bags for those systems. I think it depends on what the findings are. There may also be opportunities for additional grants as part of the implementation that may be available to the town. So I think the analysis has to take place, and then we can estimate what additional sort of onboarding costs might be applicable to the decisions or to the options that are available.
I'm okay with the follow-on costs. That's expected. I was curious, the grant itself pay for the study?
Oh, yes. Excuse me, Scott. Yes.
Okay, great. That's all. That's perfect. Thanks.
Other questions? I don't see any. Getting a grant to do a study that we don't have to pay for, that's going to give us information for future action down the road, seems like a no-brainer to me.
Sign me up every time.
So, is there a motion to support applying for this grant?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Corey, thank you very much. We look forward to you coming back at some point and giving us the results of the study and the grant, or at least updating us as to when we can expect to receive it and the study can start.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Thanks.
All right, we are at our 8:25 p.m. item, old business. First on is a request for a proclamation recognizing August 15th, 2020 to be India Day and encourage all residents to join the Indian community to celebrate or commemorate the 73rd anniversary of India's independence. So Noreen, I believe you are out there.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
we can.
Hi.
Perfect. So this is a request again from our organization. We haven't yet started promoting the event, and we want to make sure that we have a formal acceptance of the event from the town in order to promote it, given that it's COVID times. Also, more importantly, is that we hope that you will recognize our day. We've reached out to several towns, actually even the state of New Hampshire. The governor himself has provided us a similar proclamation. So I'm just hoping that this will qualify our need and be able to promote it for the upcoming event on August 15th.
Comments, questions? Mark?
No,
No, oh, I thought you were,
I gotta do something. I gotta keep my hands down.
sorry.
You don't get any auctions, Mark. You'll end up buying something.
Yeah, really.
That'd be horrible. I'd be horrible.
Any questions for me?
I think Anita has a question.
Yeah, I just
Anita.
have a question. I was wondering, like, I know we have a significant South Asian population in town, but I was just curious how much of it is actually, does anyone know how much of it is Indian versus the other areas in South Asia?
I
Just
don't.
curious. Okay.
I don't have that offhand. I think it is broken out in the census data, but I don't have that at the tips of my
Okay.
fingers.
Okay. Just curious.
So I guess, I mean, Noreen, if I understand your request, I mean, it's in some ways it's two parts. One, that the town, accepts and permits and allows you to have your, to have the celebration on the town common. I think that, we have already approved that by granting permission on the common. And then the second one is adopting the proclamation that you've sent to us.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Correct. I mean, it's just like a certificate of acknowledgement, and that's what it is. It's something that we will cherish and probably hold in our archives very proudly.
So here's, okay, Anita, go ahead and then I'll express.
You can go first. That's okay.
So here's my concern. In the past, I mean, we have never done a proclamation like this in the past, in which we have what I see endorsed a country and its existence and its protocol. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but I am concerned about precedent, and I am concerned about the next one that comes in and how we decide that. And I'm also concerned about the town appearing as if it is endorsing, specific policies, practices of a particular country in this proclamation. So that's what I'm concerned about, and that's what makes me somewhat uncomfortable. Anita, I know you had a comment.
So my question was, so we were at the end of the proclamation, we're encouraging everybody to celebrate with the Indian community in town. And I was curious if there was a website or some sort of a collection of all the different events that would be happening. Because I feel like to have such a proclamation, it would be really to like lift or kind of amplify a lot of the work that's already happening around town. And I just wanted to see if you had a sense of the other activities that would be occurring.
Is this question for me, Anita?
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the other events, yes, we have a lot going on, but they are all virtual. The only one that we're having on the town common, which more or less will take not more than half an hour, is the flag hoisting. And we will be promoting all our other events on the social media and encouraging everyone to join in. It's virtual, it's free. So we will be doing that for sure. Yes, Scott.
Scott, my job, Lorraine.
Oh,
mean,
I'm sorry. Sorry
yeah,
about that.
I think I agree with Andrea to a large degree in the sense that a proclamation is not something that I don't think ever done in my memory, and it is an endorsement. But as I actually read the proclamation document, it's to recognize India Day, and in the head paragraph, recognize India Day and encourage residents. And then, now therefore, we, the Westford Board of Selectmen, recognize October 15th. So in the document itself, we aren't proclaiming anything, we're recognizing. And as a board, we recognize things all the time. We recognize long-term employees, we recognize Eagle Scouts. And the goal of the Indian Association is to actually have something to say, Westford recognizes this organization and this event and this community of residents in our town. So I think if we just, my opinion, one thought would be just to change the certificate to say recognition instead of proclamation. Everything else stands as it is. I think everyone's happy, but that's just a thought.
Tom?
Yeah, so I followed the same sort of logic path that Scott did, in that what the document contains is largely a recitation of facts, and I think all we're actually endorsing here is to encourage people to celebrate the day. So I feel like, although it is a little bit new ground, I understand for us to do it. It seems like at least I would feel comfortable. We've done a lot of other things to help support and recognize the day. I think, doing one more small thing, by encouraging people to recognize the day is appropriate from my point of view.
I guess my thought was to change the word proclamation to recognition, because I share the concern that today, I agree, on this document, I would support everything there about India. But someday this may be a country with more objectionable foreign policies or domestic policies that we don't want to endorse. So then how do we say we proclaim North Korea Day, hypothetically, right? So an extreme example. So I think if we change it to recognition, we give the India Association the recognition that they're asking for, but we don't put ourselves in the position of proclaiming something that someday we may regret with a different nation or organization.
Okay, there are a couple of comments here that I just want to reiterate. In response, I think, to the question of the percentage of the South Asian population that was Indian, we have an answer that says 10% plus. So I guess, I don't know if that means more than 10% or around 10% or a little bit more than 10%, but it says it's specifically Indian, but there are many other ethnic groups under India, and obviously there are many other religious groups in India, but that Indian identity today is often affiliated with Hindi and Hindu. So that was a comment that we received. Any other comments or questions from the board? Scott?
So my question, I guess, would be to Noreen, I guess, would it be acceptable to have the word recognition as opposed to proclamation before I make a suggestion to the board?
In the absence of a proclamation or recognition would be great.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I didn't want to exclude you from the discussion about your own day. So thank you.
So Scott, is there something you want to recommend?
I think Anita's her hand up. So.
Oh, Anita, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Does the town have a policy on proclamations or recognitions? No.
I don't believe we do. Do we,
No.
Jody?
No, not at this point.
Could we look into, or could we look into creating one? If, I don't know if towns usually have one, but maybe that's something we should explore if this might be a question that comes up again. So we have more
Sure.
parameters.
We should probably, we should probably explore it in conjunction with the flag
Town
policy that we're on the town, or, you know, that we're going to explore
Mhm.
at a future meeting.
I'm not sure what our vote would be on proclamation, if it would be 5-0 or not. I figured that with recognition, if that's acceptable to Noreen and her organization, I think that makes us a little more comfortable. In the absence of a policy, we aren't setting one that we might inadvertently regret someday down the road.
So, do you want to make that motion, Scott?
I make a motion that we accept the request for a recognition of August 15th, 2020 to be India Day, and encourage all residents to join the Indian community, celebrate, commemorate the 33rd anniversary of India's independence. So I'm just changing proclamation to recognition.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
I'm abstaining.
Anita?
Aye.
And I'm abstaining as well. But you have 3 aye votes, so it will be changed to recognition. That will be issued. I guess, do we give it to you, Noreen?
Yes, that would be great. And I'll reach out to Jody and Samantha. Thank you.
Yes, Noreen, if you want to stop by tomorrow after lunch, we'll have it ready for you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, everyone, and good evening to you.
All right, our next item.
Thank you.
you.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? Nope, okay. Our next item, discussion and possible vote to dispose of remaining bond monies that were established for the construction of Rome Drive Extension. And Jeff Morissette.
Hey, Andrea, Jeff Morissette. I'm your Director of Land Use Management, and we should also have with us tonight Jonathan Silverstein from KP Law, and we also have some lot owners of concern. So
Okay.
if I could provide a very brief background.
Yeah,
And
can I
then
just
get-
say, that, Jeff, can I just say before you start, I was on the planning board when this all happened and when we pulled the bond money and then went to the bankruptcy court to get that money.
I know, and
That's how
I'm very
long it's been
glad
around.
that you are
Pardon?
on this board now, so.
Right.
So, as you recall, Andrea, there was an approved subdivision known as Rome Drive Extension. The planning board did retain surety to guarantee construction of that way and the associated utilities. The developer failed to complete the roadway within the required time frame, and so the planning board did call the bond. And unknown to the town at that time, the IRS took some of those monies. And so the town tried to intervene through the then legal counsel, and it resulted in an agreement for judgment, which left the town with only approximately $58,000 of money. And just let's remember, it was never at that point town money. It was money provided by the developer to ensure the completion of the roadway. So that was not enough money to complete the project. The lot owners appealed to the town to try to see if they would work to complete the roadway. It was unsuccessful for a number of reasons. They were given some advice to perhaps try to solve it privately. It might be financially more beneficial in that manner, cheaper to do. And so they did exactly that. They completed construction of the roadway, and in 2015, the road was accepted as a public way. And at this point, the affected lot owners, 9 of them, are trying to get partial reimbursement. So they contributed perhaps $17,500 each. And with the remaining money, they're trying to get partial reimbursement, approximately $6,000 and change, maybe $6,500. So if you're just asking me what is the fair thing to do, I'd say we'll give them the money. But the more we researched this, the records were a little incomplete. The language of the agreement for judgment, it isn't the most ideal. And we're dealing with a little bit of an unusual situation. Normally, when the board calls the bond or tries to call the bond, they participate in that process, and they usually work with the contractors and directly reimburse the contractors. And here we are now, 5 years after the road was accepted, and not through the fault of the lot owners. We're trying to find a way to reimburse what was then work done by private, people, lot owners, for what was then a private project, not yet accepted as a town way, where the town didn't actively participate in the process. So there are some questions as to whether we can use the conventional means to work through the planning board to release these funds to the lot owners. We did reach out to council. It's very complicated. There could be another legal option to do this. We've given you 3 options for you to consider tonight. We are looking for direction. It is very complicated. There's things like multiple applicants, divorce, bankruptcy, IRS, jail, the agreement for judgment. So it's very complicated, but at the end of the day, we got $58,000 in change. We're trying to get direction from you folks with benefit of counsel, how we might be able to do that. And of the 3 options, the first one is to simply work with town staff to try to reimburse their association for those monies. The second is more complicated, and I leave it to Jonathan to speak to that. It involves a special legislation, town meeting, petition article. I don't know how long that process would be. As of right now, it's my understanding that the same 9 lot owners who were in play at the time where they provided the funds are the same ones there now. So we don't have the complication, perhaps, of changing lot owners, and Mr. Burns can speak to that later. And the third option would be to do as what is strictly written in the agreement. If you took a strict interpretation, the money just goes to the town, to the general fund. So while that might be legal, it doesn't really seem fair, and I would not like to go there unless I'm ordered to go there. And Jonathan, I don't know if you are willing to chime in here.
Jonathan, we're not hearing you if you're trying to speak to us.
He's self-muted on his camera. I keep trying to turn it on. It's not working.
Jonathan, you need to unmute yourself. You must be having difficulty.
So those are the 3 options. Council's
Okay.
opinion is in the packet for you.
Yep. Okay, Tom?
So Jeff, it sounds like your judgment and in terms of what's most straightforward and what's likely to give the residents the appropriate and fair relief is the first of the 3.
If I selfishly had total say, yes, option 1. I'm sure council would opine that the second lengthier option would provide the cleanest legal avenue. But if I'm being selfish in terms of staff time, council time, the residents, option 1 would be preferable to me.
Mark?
Yeah, so let's say we go with option 1, Jeff, and since Jonathan is mute right now, what are the legal implications?
Well,
can folks hear me
I'd love to
now?
hear from council on that, but if it's
Wait, Jonathan, are you there?
I signed out and
You're off
signed
the hook.
back in. That seemed to do it.
Okay.
You're off the hook, Jeff.
My
There you are.
apologies.
Hi, Jonathan. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So I think if you can just briefly explain the legal ramifications for option 1 and 2, that would be helpful to us.
Of course. And maybe I'll just sort of lay the groundwork for what my opinion is as to why it's not possible, unfortunately, to simply pay the money out to the homeowners. The issue is that the agreement for judgment provides that the funds would be made, quote, payable to the town of Westford. As a general rule, when money is paid to a municipality, it goes into the general fund unless there's one of the exceptions, such as a gift account or a revolving fund or some other exception that it would fit within. There is no such exception here. Because these were no longer being held as subdivision surety, it wasn't even something that the planning board could quote unquote call anymore, because it's now payable to the town of Westford as a body politic. And even if it were still considered a subdivision surety, the funds could be used to pay contractors directly, and we've done that in one or two other instances, but only with the sign off of the contractor themselves. And I assume that that's not something that's going to be possible here. So it's obviously a lot more complicated than we'd like it to be, and that common sense might suggest it should be. So as to the options that Jeff laid out, the first is to simply pay the lot owners. And for the reasons I just described, I don't think that is a lawful option. The second would be to authorize us to work with town staff to prepare a home rule petition. It could be put on, assuming you'll have a special town meeting in the fall, it could be put on the warrant for that special town meeting. Town meeting passes it, it's submitted to the town's legislative delegation, and I would like to think that this would not be terribly controversial. There might be questions that that staff of the legislature might have about the background, which we could certainly explain why the town is proposing to do this, and hopefully it would be relatively non-controversial and would get through. Obviously, all of that takes a little bit of time, but and I don't mean to downplay how long the property owners have been waiting, but hopefully it would be a small amount of time relative to how long they've already been waiting, and the town would have the comfort of knowing that it's following legislative authorization to disperse these funds. And then, of course, the third would be to simply have the funds deposited in the general fund and subject to appropriation by town meeting for any municipal purpose, which, as Jeff indicated, it's my understanding is not the preferred alternative of the town.
I
So-
can't speak for the town.
Yeah.
Right. So I can, as someone who was involved in this on the planning board at the time, I can tell you that it was always the intent of the planning board that those funds be used for the completion of the roadway. And that they were not, they were not general funds, and they were not, and any recovery we got was not for, the general fund, but was to be used for the completion of the road, Rome Drive extension. So that was always the intent of the planning board when we started this, however many years ago, 10 years ago. Tom?
So it sounds like the only option that is both legal and accomplishes that intent is the second one. So if I understand that correctly, I guess I would make that motion. I don't want to curtail discussion, but it sounds like that's the only path we really have.
It sounds like that's the only legal path we have. Scott? Scott?
Yeah, if I was on mute, we can't normally do an unlawful thing, so I will second Tom's motion to take the second route, which is our only legal and fair path forward.
Jeff has his hand up.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know that there were some lot owners there. I don't know if they had something they wanted to contribute or not
Yep.
to the conversation.
So I see Chris Burns and Janice, I think it's Ferguson. I only see it's Fergu on my screen. If either of you have anything you would like to contribute or say?
I think you're
Chris
on
is
mute.
muted. He's trying.
I think you're muted.
Still muted.
It sounds like Chris is trying to talk.
You're on, Janice, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm up. I will say that we tried very hard to have the town complete the road for us. We had a meeting with Norman Koalo in October of 2008, where he told us that the town was not interested in completing the road for us. And that our best route forward was to do it ourselves. So we worked with the town and we were very happy with how that turned out, and that the road got accepted. And we had a lot of help from people who worked for the town to get through that process. We invested well over $100,000, closer to $200,000 in this process. And everything that I read from that time, because I spent a lot of time going through town documents, indicated that that money, like you said, Andrea, was for completion of the road. The court filing specifically asked to have, there's a paragraph that I have from the court filing that says, as a result of Angel Crest failure to complete the construction and the installation of services, specifically authorizes the planning board to access the funds deposited in the passbook savings accounts for the purpose of completing the construction of Rome Drive extension and installing the municipal services, which is what we did. So we do ask you to find a way to reimburse us at least partially for the money that we spent in doing this activity.
Can I be heard? Can anyone hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfection. Okay. Janice, thank you for covering me. I don't know why my audio was not working, but I agree with everything Janice just said. The residents of Rome Drive have been trying to work with the town since 2007 on reconstructing the roadway. I think a lot of the costs that we incurred as a group of owners here were increased because of the delay. We repaired this roadway in 2013. Had this been done in 2005, 2004, when it was clear the developer was not going to complete the roadway, the costs would have been substantially less, whether it been from inflation or from the degradation of the road that incurred over the next 10 years. I know Janice specifically and folks that lived here prior to me went to the town asking for a betterment process that was denied, went asking for the town to fund this, which was denied. Ultimately, we as residents agreed to fund this road project ourselves, with the hope and expectation that the town would contribute the $58,000 or so that have been in trust and were specifically actually segregated by the town when the settlement took place back in 2005, 2006, to help us defray the cost of that work. That was never offered to us as a group of residents. And I would further submit to the board that not only did we incur these costs, but prior to that, while the road was an unaccepted roadway, the residents also incurred all of the plowing costs and all of the maintenance costs of these roads while being a full taxpayer. There was no carve out for services that were not provided by the town. So I think the way that we feel about it is the way that Jeff has characterized this in his memo, that in the spirit of fairness, in the spirit of appropriateness, we believed that not only would the developer complete this roadway, but that the town would stand behind us when they went and sued for performance on these bonds. That didn't happen. We felt we needed to repair our roadway and make it passable for ourselves as residents. And we're looking for the town to do the right thing, to do the fair thing, and to either disperse the remaining escrow funds in accordance with item 1 on Jeff's memo, which sounds like it might be a little more difficult, or number 2, to form a home rule petition and request some special legislation to make this pass. I think that I think that would be the right thing to do for the residents of Rome Drive, and I think that's the fair thing to do.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, so I'm guessing there's no argument about that these folks deserve whatever money is left and afforded to them, that the first one is illegal. And so that the second one is the motion and second they already had is the proper way to go. So I fully support that.
Okay, is there a motion? Would you like to make that a motion, Mark?
I think Tom already made it and Scott seconded it.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Good enough. So there are no other questions or comments. So all in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. So I guess Jeff and Jonathan, I guess I would ask that you work together to take and include the residents to take the necessary steps to arrange for this money to be released to the residents. We'll have it, assuming we have a fall town meeting, we will have it as a warrant article and then submit it as a home rule petition. Okay.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Good night.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is a request to appoint Vidya Raman to the Cultural Council as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have a request to appoint Noel Donovan to the Conservation Commission as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
And then we have a request to approve 2020 annual appointments for the committee and board members as listed in our meeting packet tonight. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Do we have any board reports or updates? Tom?
Just very, very briefly, the town school safety task force is meeting on Thursday morning. We've had some great applicants for the assistant large positions that this board created in the last meeting. We're going to review and discuss those in the meeting on Thursday with the intention of coming back on the 11th to submit all the applicants for review, but make whatever recommendation we have.
Great, thank you. Jody, town manager's report, you're up.
Yes, thank you. So I want to announce a donation that we received from doctors Diraj, and Dihila Hamid D. Mukala of 2 Clorox Total 360 system electrostatic sprayers, which we're using to keep our buildings clean during the pandemic. So very generous donation. I want to announce that. Also, a request from the Council on Aging to accept a grant in the amount of $2,500 for the assistance with the weekly food distribution and grab-and-go meals awarded. Actually, I'm requesting that you all accept these donations when I'm done. And a request from the fire department to support applying for a grant to assist with funding approximately 90% of a frontline pump with assistance from the Firefighters Grant AFG program. So I'm asking if you can accept all of those donations and the grant application.
So moved.
Second?
I would second with appreciation.
Yes, thank you to the doctors, very, very much.
And then I have a request to.
We have to vote on it.
We haven't voted yet, Jody. Hang on a minute.
Hold your
Thank you,
horses.
clerk.
All those in favor, Anita,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Jody.
Thank you.
This is the busiest night I've had in ever.
No, there was the
Okay.
night when you kept reminding me to vote too, Mark, when I kept
Oh, yeah,
forgetting.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So, and I'm seeking your approval on the following contracts: a collective bargaining agreement with our firefighters for fiscal year 21. A lot of companies here listed on your agenda that I'm not going to read, but for water chemicals for fiscal year 21 from the water department. And Telenet Inc. purchase order for bidirectional amplifier, which is a radio communication system in the amount of $83,537.39 for Westford Academy and Nabnasset School. AAA laser printer toner in the amount of $32,000. Comcast for 2 PRI-based phone connections, amount of $13,000. And the Dirt Doctor for grinding and removing tree and debris from our microburst in the amount of $14,000.
Any questions? Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Jody, I just have one question. With respect to the firefighters contract, did you hear back in terms of the minor change I wanted to make?
Yes, and it is in the contract that's in your packet. We did update that to reflect parental leave instead of paternity and maternity. And we will also get that corrected in all our other contracts. So thank you for that. And they were fine with that.
Just for the other board members, there's no longer a Massachusetts Maternity Leave Act that went out in 2015. It's now called the Parental Leave Act. So I just asked that the contract be amended to reflect that reality and the state of the Massachusetts law.
Glad you caught it before me, but that was well done.
May I just announce that Paul Sterrett just asked me if we missed his grant, but you did that at 7 o'clock, so he hung in here till now. But he missed that, so if you're
poor
watching,
Sorry, Paul.
you can go to bed now. So thank you.
All right. All those in favor, Mark,
Yes.
Anita,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to waive reading of correspondence?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
I'm
Oh.
sorry. Can I speak to that just real quickly? I think you had very limited, but it was notifying you that we got a settlement on PPE. And I think that was the document. And that was John Mangiarati. He found us a company in Maine to buy PPE from. And then the Attorney General's office investigated them and they gave us a settlement of $5,200 and we only spent $4,200 on PPE. So we made out on that deal.
All
So
right.
anyway, I wanted to announce that. So
Oh,
Thank
you
you,
love
John.
the government, don't you? You love the government.
we made money on that deal.
Excellent. All right. With that, is there a motion to waive reading of correspondence?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Just Tom,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Westford. Good night, Westford. Everybody stay safe. Bye.
Have a good night.
I'll just
Goodbye.
mention that Jeff Stevens just asked me about his MRC grant, and I told him we did it at 7. So these guys got to pay attention.
I was gonna say, these guys gotta pay attention. You know, we start at 7 o'clock.
I think you need to write them up. That's unacceptable.
Everybody
They
have a
got to
good
listen
night.
to us. All right, everybody.